Good evening, everyone. My name is Shawnee Broadhead.
I'm Elizabeth DeLeon.
I'm Armando Pedrosa.
And today we're going to talk to you about identifying your intent as well as creating a presentation objective. So as you're identifying your needs as well as the needs of the audience, your goal is to focus on identifying your intent. This is done so by understanding your general purpose. We're going to talk to you about your presentation objective using things such as SMART goals, as well as using your objective to ultimately relay your message to your audience. So now I'm going to pass it over to Elizabeth, and she's going to talk to you a little bit more about understanding your purpose.
So as Shawnee mentioned, the first step of identifying your intent is to understand your purpose. Now we're going to look at a tell situation. In a tell situation, the purpose of the presentation is to inform your audience. You're focusing on the what, the how, and the who. Now some examples can be talking about chapter 2 of your textbook to your class, to your students. You're informing them of a topic. It could be introducing a colleague to your team. This is going to be the who. It could be explaining a new program or new software, how to do something. In each of these situations, you have control of the conversation. You are the one giving them the information. So there's no audience participation in that. In a sell situation, you're trying to change the audience behavior or sell something. You want them to change their attitude, their behavior. So you want to focus on the why. Why should they do that? It could be telling your corporate office to move to Texas. Why should they do that? For better tax incentives. It could be encouraging managers to go to leadership seminars. Why? To become better leaders. Now on the sell situation, the focus is the why. So since you're going to be asking people to change, we've all worked with people that hate changing, that they're very actively against it. So you want to have some kind of question-answer session at the end to get over those immediate hesitations and answer those questions. So in these situations, you're going to have a little less control of that presentation because you are going to ask for just a little bit of audience participation. Now in a consult situation, you're asking for insight from the audience. Now a great example for that is currently at my work, we're creating a software, and we want feedback from KPMG. So we're having a panel. We're going to ask them their feedback on it. We're asking CPAs and people that are going to actively be using the software for insights, their feedback on how to make that better. In a joint situation, you're asking for guidance from the audience. Now, a great example of this is a brainstorming. If anybody has a problem on a certain project, you pull your team together and y'all try to figure out how to solve that problem. You're collectively coming up with the answer. So in these last two situations, consulting and joining, you're going to have less control because you're asking for feedback from the audience. So you want to make sure you plan for that and you realize that you're not going to be in control of that presentation. So now I'm going to pass it over to Haley. She's going to talk to you a little bit about the presentation objective.
Your presentation objective should be result-oriented and audience-focused.
It's okay.
This is more than just a general statement about your presentation. This will also help you keep on track during the presentation and will help you from swaying away from what result you're trying to achieve. An example of a presentation objective is, as a result of our presentation, the audience will agree to volunteer more within their community. Your presentation is directly linked to your audience, and you need to affect them during the presentation to make them feel or think a certain way to achieve what your result. And this will lead us to the SMART goals. During this presentation, I will only be focusing on the first 3 components. You need to specify what you want from your audience. Using the previous example, it was to the point you wanted them to agree to volunteer within their community. Then you need to consider whether your result is measurable. This will try to help you determine how you're going to make them want to volunteer. This could tell them different types of volunteering, or tell them how this could also be a positive impact on the community. And lastly, you'll need to determine whether this result is achievable. You'll need to search and find if there are volunteering opportunities available within their community, and if they are in great need. Now I'm going to pass it to Armando for using the objectives.
So as Haley said, I'm going to be talking to you about using your objective. When to write your objective, you will be more efficient if you draft your presentation objective before doing the research. Even though the audience and intent both need to be considered, different people start in different places. You will also need to be flexible in your approach because you will discover that you may need to modify your presentation objective several times before you figure out what you need to say or what you're going to discuss that day. When drafting your objective, the majority of individuals will do more audience analysis before moving to intent. Others prefer to start with the general purpose, using a springboard to collect information to draft the possible objectives. Typically, you will use a method called mind mapping to complete your presentation objective, and then making modifications as you need to. When discussing your modifications in the presentation, you'll need to understand that certain situations change before your presentation objective, and you need to be able to change that objective as you go along. For example, if you're giving tips on computer security and there's a computer virus that's affecting other people around the city or something, you need to make sure that you're including that hazard so that you can give tips on how to fix it. Moving on to relaying your objective. As you prepare, you'll need to keep your objective as you put your talk together. The first thing to consider is your opening and closing statement, as those are the most important parts of your presentation. They will more than likely be the most that people remember. When designing visual aids, you want to make sure that your handouts, your slides, your notes, they're there for visual, they're focus oriented. You don't want them to turn into a visual where they're just some kind of distracting slide that nobody's going to really understand the purpose of. As you design your visual slide, using slides, your deck pages, your handouts, you should emphasize what's important to help you accomplish your objective. And then as you rehearse your presentation, you need to determine what to cut and what to emphasize on. When you rehearse, a lot of the information that you talk about is going to be either too long or too short. You need to know what to cut and what to really talk about. And then evaluating your performance. When you're evaluating your performance, you need to understand that even though your classmate, colleague, anybody tells you that your performance was amazing, it doesn't mean that your presentation objective was a success. At the same rate, if you make stammers or like I'm doing, I'm looking at my cards, it doesn't mean that it's a complete failure. The point is you want to make sure that you hit your presentation objective and then making a point about it. And then I'm going to pass it over to Shani and she'll close this up.
Thank you. So as Armando mentioned, the two most important factors whenever you're presenting as well as preparing for a presentation is flexibility and efficiency. So as you identify the needs of yourself as well as the audience, you're able to understand your general purpose. Using things such as SMART goals, you're able to create this presentation objective in which you use in order to relay your message to help the audience see your perspective and ultimately believe your purpose. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?